Fame made them untouchable, until life reminded them they're human too.
It's heartbreaking, almost cruel, how greatness is so often born in places where dreams were never meant to survive. Some souls are destined for light, yet they begin their journey in the dark. Before she became the glacial muse of Scarface, before she cracked a whip and redefined danger in Batman Returns, before her eyes could silence a room and her stillness could move the world, Michelle Pfeiffer was just a girl staring out a small California window, wondering why she felt invisible. She would one day become a living paradox, a symphony of fragility and fire, a beauty too real to be untouchable, a legend too human to be myth. For more than 40 years, she has stood at the heart of Hollywood as a contradiction that breathes, delicate yet unbreakable, quiet yet thunderous, radiant yet shaped by shadow. But this story is not about fame or the roles that made her immortal. This story is about what came before the light, the silence, the ache, the endurance, and the woman who learned that beauty is not what saves you. It's what you fight for when no one believes you can. In Scarface, she became Elvira Hancock, the frozen flame of an era. In Batman Returns, she became the heartbeat of chaos. Those moments were not luck. They were the sound of years of silence finally breaking. But to understand how Michelle Pfeiffer learned to burn, you must begin where the world was quiet. Michelle Marie Pfeiffer was born on April 29, 1958, in Santa Ana, California, a sun-bleached stretch of Orange County, where every life seemed ordinary, every dream small enough to fit in the palm of your hand. Her father, Richard, spent his days under a punishing sun, fixing air conditioners that coughed through the heat. His hands were rough, his voice steady. Her mother, Donna Jean, woke before dawn, folding laundry and prayers in the same quiet rhythm. They lived on faith, not fortune, pride, not privilege. Their home was modest, but alive. The kitchen radio whispered old country songs. The fan hummed against the endless summer. Every sound carried the weight of endurance. For little Michelle, those sounds became music, the rhythm of a world she loved but couldn't belong to. The Pfeiffers didn't talk much about dreams. They talked about bills, about weather, about keeping the refrigerator full. But inside their youngest daughter, something unspoken grew. A hunger not for fame, but for meaning. At 16, she took a job at the local Vons supermarket, her name tag pinned neatly to her uniform. Between the flicker of fluorescent lights and the monotony of checkout beeps, she began to sense a world beyond those walls. "I didn't know what I wanted," she would one day confess. "I just knew I didn't belong there." Some nights, she walked home barefoot to save her shoes, her feet black with dust, her heart whispering rebellion. It wasn't tragedy that shaped her. It was the quiet monotony that dared her to dream. She learned endurance from her father's silence, grace from her mother's patience, and strength from her own invisibility. That invisible ache became the forge of her future. Hollywood is not kind to dreamers, but Michelle was never naive, only brave in ways the world didn't yet understand. With a few dollars saved and a second-hand car that sputtered more than it drove, she left Orange County for Los Angeles. The city didn't greet her. It swallowed her whole. She rented a small, cold apartment where the wallpaper peeled and rain leaked through the cracks. The radiator coughed instead of heating. She'd eat canned soup straight from the tin, counting each spoonful like a prayer for purpose. Days blurred into nights of waiting tables, answering phones, taking odd modeling jobs, anything to keep the lights on. Every audition ended the same way: polite smiles, soft dismissals. "You're beautiful," they'd say, but what they meant was, "You're replaceable." Beauty had become her cage. She entered the Miss Orange County pageant in 1978, not for the crown, but for an exit. Winning was the first door that creaked open. Through it came commercials, one-line roles, and endless disappointment. Her first leading part in Grease 2, 1982, was supposed to be her break, but it nearly broke her instead. The critics mocked her. The movie failed, and for the first time, she questioned if the world had been right about her all along. But she didn't quit. She studied harder, auditioned endlessly, broke herself open until there was nothing left but truth. Then came Scarface. The whispers followed her even before she entered the room. Too soft, too green, not ready. But when Michelle began to read, when her trembling voice turned to steel, every doubt in that room fell silent. Al Pacino, who had doubted her, would later admit, she was extraordinary. In 1983, the world met Elvira Hancock, the icy, tragic flame at the center of Scarface. It wasn't just a performance, it was a resurrection. The cashier from Santa Ana had set Hollywood ablaze. From that moment, Michelle Pfeiffer was no longer invisible. But fame, as she soon learned, does not heal you. It only exposes your scars in brighter light. The price of perfection. From 1983 to 1992, she moved through Hollywood like a comet, unstoppable, luminous, burning from both ends. The Witches of Eastwick, Dangerous Liaisons, The Fabulous Baker Boys, each role deeper, sharper, more demanding. She sang until her voice cracked, played piano until her fingers bled, filmed until dawn in smoke-filled clubs that stung her lungs. Behind the camera, exhaustion gnawed at her. She once said, "I was living everyone else's dream, but I'd forgotten what mine was." By 1992, she was the highest-paid actress in Hollywood, $12 million per film. The girl who once earned $3.75 an hour was now untouchable. And yet, she felt hollow. Perfection had become her prison. Fame was a transaction. Visibility traded for silence. And silence was the one thing Michelle Pfeiffer had always needed to survive. The love that couldn't last. Before the lights, before Scarface, there was Peter Horton. He saw her when no one else did, the shy girl with a soft laugh and fierce eyes. They were both young, both struggling, both believing love could steady them. They married in 1981 in a backyard ceremony, surrounded by friends, sunlight, and promises whispered in the language of hope. For a time, they had everything that mattered: laughter, loyalty, and belief. But as her star rose, theirs began to fade. She was gone more often than home, her nights filled with scripts and flights, his with empty rooms and fading patience. By the time Dangerous Liaisons arrived, fiction had begun to mirror life. Her chemistry with co-star John Malkovich bled beyond the screen. Two souls loyal on paper, lonely in truth. Theirs was not scandal, but ache. A quiet understanding between two hearts that had forgotten how to be seen. When her marriage ended, it did so without spectacle. No blame, no noise, just silence. "Sometimes love isn't enough," she said years later, "when your lives grow in different directions." The woman who had learned to perform pain on screen now lived it behind closed doors. She filled her loneliness with work. The applause grew louder. Her heart grew quieter. Then, against all odds, love found her again. In 1993, Michelle met television writer David E. Kelley on a blind date. It wasn't magic. It was peace. At the time, she was adopting a baby girl, Claudia Rose. On their second date, she told him. His answer was simple. Then I guess I'm meeting my daughter soon. They married that same year, not in front of cameras, but beneath quiet skies. A year later, their son, John Henry, was born. And for the first time in her life, Michelle Pfeiffer stopped running. I didn't quit acting, she would later say. I just chose my life. The woman who had once chased perfection began chasing presence. School drop-offs replaced red carpets. Family dinners replaced premieres. The silence that once wounded her became her peace. They had ordinary days and quiet arguments. Nights where David worked late and Michelle sat by the window, reading by the light of a lamp that never went off. But they endured, not because it was easy, but because it mattered. Love, she learned, isn't fireworks. It's choosing to stay. Every day. Even when the world spins too fast. 3 decades later, they're still together. Not glamorous, not scandalous, just real. But even peace can't shield you from grief. In 1998, her father, Richard, passed away. The world saw her walking red carpets. What it didn't see was the girl who drove alone through Los Angeles that night, headlights blurring through tears. I learned what silence really meant, she whispered. Her father had been her compass. Without him, the map of her life felt erased. Then, years later, her mother followed. Donna Jean, the heartbeat of her childhood, the soft voice in every storm, was gone. After the funeral, Michelle stopped rushing. She moved slower, spoke softer. Grief had not broken her. It had quieted her. She began tending her garden barefoot, feeling the earth her mother once walked. Some evenings, she whispered to the wind, "Can you see me, Mom?" And when the breeze brushed her cheek, she took it as an answer. Grief didn't end. It transformed. It became love with nowhere to go. She said, "My parents never had much, but they gave me everything that mattered." Now, she sees her father's patience in her son's eyes, her mother's warmth in her daughter's smile. Her parents are gone, but not absent. They live in every quiet act of grace she performs. Time continued to take. In 2017, Jonathan Demme passed away. To the world, he was the visionary behind The Silence of the Lambs. To Michelle, he was the man who believed in her before she believed in herself. He had cast her in Married to the Mob when Hollywood only saw her as the pretty blonde. He saw the artist hidden beneath. "You were always there," he once told her. "You just needed to be seen." When he died, she said nothing publicly. She just sat in her garden as the sun fell and whispered, "Thank you." Then came 2022. Ray Liotta, her co-star in The Family, her friend. The world mourned the tough guy. She mourned the tender man behind the roles. She rewatched their scenes, the kitchen dance, the quiet laughter, and wept. "He was so kind," she said softly, "so real." For Michelle, these losses didn't reopen wounds, they deepened her humanity. Each goodbye became a thread in the tapestry of her soul. She learned that love and loss are twins, forever entwined. The woman beyond the screen. Today, Michelle Pfeiffer no longer measures her worth by applause, but by peace. Her home with David is warm, her children grown. The piano from the Fabulous Baker Boys sits in the corner, quiet but full of memory. She still acts, on her terms. Her face carries time beautifully, her silence still powerful enough to command a room. When asked what she's proudest of, she doesn't mention awards. She says, "That I never stopped learning to love." Because the greatest story Michelle Pfeiffer ever lived wasn't written in a script. It was written at home, in the stillness between loss and laughter. She is proof that beauty can be born of pain. that silence can speak louder than applause, that even legends crave the ordinary. If this story moved you, if her strength, her fire, her fragility reminded you that even the quietest hearts can roar, then leave a like.